Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk about why female health and wellbeing matters in sport. So we've talked about some of the stats at the start, and we know that at these key life stages, we start to see these drop-offs at the key life stages, and that's often to do with how women are feeling about their bodies. Let me just make sure I can get onto my own page. Okay, so Jan, I'm going to come to you first. We've talked about our partnership this evening, and we know that wellbeing of women are absolute specialists in female health, female wellbeing. And I believe, and hopefully you believe, that by combining your expertise and what we're doing, we can make quite a formidable force and create hopefully lasting change. So, from a health charity perspective, what does the evidence show about the cost of this knowledge gap in women's health and sport?
Let me start, please, by just saying how thrilled and excited we are, A, to be here. Well, actually, it's me, because I know Marianne's on her way, and also to be working with England Netball, because we all believe that it's just going to be a fantastic partnership. So thank you for giving us the opportunity. But if we start, so research for our period campaign shows that women and girls just don't know enough about their body and their menstrual cycle. And that is really extraordinary because, on average, we have 12 periods a year for up to 40 years. So it's pretty shocking, really, that we just don't know enough about it. We did 3 surveys, 7,500 women, and we launched it in February this year. And there's just countless stories in there and data that shows women and girls putting up with pain, heavy bleeding, and other symptoms, and they just don't know how to go and get the treatment. And in fact, I suppose untreated symptoms just have such a negative impact. And they have a negative impact on school. So we hear from so many people who spend days, weeks not going to school, therefore they're not participating in any activities there, sporting activities, in work, and of course, just social activities. And if they're not participating in social activities, and I believe that sport really is a social activity, then obviously that's going to affect their health. So dropout rates, girls leave, we know that girls leave at puberty, and that's to do with the fact that their periods have started, but also it's to do with body image, etc. And that is such a shame that we're losing girls at that point. We know that we lose women when it comes to having a baby, either in the run-up to having a baby, fertility treatment, and then afterwards we know that many don't go back. And then of course at the sort of perimenopause and menopause stage, when actually exercise is one of those things that really makes a difference. So it's really important. Reduced performance and participation is really just very sad. And then we know that women from marginalised communities, it actually, women's health, some aspects of women's health can really affect them more. And so it's really important that, there is a cultural stigma for some, and we really need to improve that. And that's why I think that these inequalities, why this campaign is so important. I mean, it literally is the most important thing. There's shame, stigma, and silence around women's health, and it doesn't matter whether or not you're talking about periods. And how many people here, if they are using period products like period pads or tampons, still hide them away when they go to the loo. Now, that is getting better because more and more places, workplaces, are providing them. But we hear time and time again from girls at school that there are, not in every case, but in some cases there are period products available, but they're hidden away and they can't get access. And that for me is just so sad. And I think the other thing is we really need better education in schools. And actually that education needs to continue all the way through a woman's life. So yeah, I mean there's so much more I could say, but I think you probably need something else.
The mic's going to switch on here. We have got your period symptom checker up. So would you like to talk a little about that?
So the reason we launched our period symptom checker is because we launched our Just a Period campaign because so many people, when we spoke to them, said, oh, I'm dismissed, you know, I'm ignored. When I go to see the healthcare professional, they just say, oh, don't worry, it's just a period. Instead of really listening to those stories from girls and women. And actually, all they need to ask is, does your period stop you doing anything? And if it does, then that's the point that people need to intervene. And there are treatments available, the anti-inflammatories and other things that can treat many conditions for women and girls. So, but one of the things that we really recognised was that actually trying to get girls and women to get to the doctor, really what they really needed is some help in getting there. So we created the period symptom checker. And really what that's all about is saying to girls exactly what I've just said. Is your period stopping you do something? Is it heavy? Is it painful? If it is, then these are the things you can do. And we explain what can be done. And it's very important that people do try some remedies first and see if any of those work. And then if they don't, then go to see the GP. And it's a quick sort of, a few questions. It takes 5 minutes. And at the end of it, you will get one of 3 options. Option 1 is that it will say, it sounds like you're handling your periods really well, and just go onto our website and you'll see some information. Another one is try some of these remedies, see if any of them work first. And then the third one is, it sounds like you would really benefit from going to see your healthcare professional. And if I say that we've now had 45,000 women complete the symptom checker, and of those, more than 70% have received that third option, which is that they need to go and see a healthcare professional. So it just shows you that the need is there. So please download our symptom checker. It really takes no time at all, and I know it's something that we really hope we're going to get lots of girls and women to take part in.
It is live on the NETBALLHer website today.
Very exciting.
Yes. The bit that I was most impressed with was that if you are in that, correct me if I'm wrong here, Diane, if you're in that third bucket and it has been identified that you do need help, you can put your email address in and you get a letter emailed to you from Dame Leslie Regan, Chair of Wellbeing of Women, to take to your doctor. And I just think that's brilliant. It's a full circle sort of behaviour change process, isn't it? Where I just think it's brilliant. Which led me on to have a conversation with Dr. Helen. So Dr. Helen's on our advisory board. And I just said, I'm really conscious of this campaign that we could potentially be opening up a can of worms. And actually, we talked about this before, that we can't just create this, oh my God, I might be suffering from all these things, and then not have this full circle support. So Dr. Helen and I had this conversation, and do you want to just explain a bit more, Helen, on the conversation we had and the support?
Once we knew that the actual information network was fantastic, but we didn't want people looking at it and then not knowing what to do with it or feeling even more confused. So we've created an infographic, I think now on NETBALLHer, which we're obviously going to put over with Wellbeing of Women, some information just to explain how you can go and seek help. It's not just your GP, there's lots of other healthcare professionals within the primary care team now and to say, is there someone there with a special interest in women's health, and how to advocate for yourself really. And if you do go and you don't quite get the response you want, actually have the confidence to go and ask for another opinion. And we want to help you, what you do.
And I think, if Helen was my GP, she's not, unfortunately, but it would be amazing. But we all know that not all GPs are like Helen. So again, we're not GPs and NGB, but what we can do is give the everyday woman that information. And I know, just talking to friends and the stories I've heard, women just don't know what they can say to the GP. They don't even know, I didn't even know there was a female health specialist that you can ask to see, or what the role of a physio is in terms of pelvic floor. So, you know, we haven't got the budgets to be able to pay for specialist healthcare for the everyday woman. Different conversation when you go up the pathway in terms of support, but I think it's the least we can do to guide them in the right way. So again, that infographic is now live today on the website, so thank you, Helen, because Helen put that together for us. So, slightly off on a tangent then, back to Hallie. So what challenges have you or your peers faced in the elite sport linked to female health, and how do these impact your confidence and participation?
Funny enough, we've been talking about periods, but I do believe periods has been a massive thing, especially for me. I started my period when I was 16, so quite late to be fair, actually on my 16th birthday. And it was painful. My symptoms were absolutely crazy. It was fainting, heavy flow, cramps that would literally take me out for about 4 days. And I remember going to my GP and them being like, this is normal, you're going to have that, you know, it's your first year in your period. And at that time I was like, okay, it is what it is. But then I didn't have my period the next month, and then the next month. And I felt like as a 16-year-old who knew nothing much about periods, when I'm going into training, I never knew when my period was going to start. And I do remember one time at training, randomly, it was actually a training match, and my period started, but because I had no support from my GP, I feel like I wasn't able to really focus fully without having the pressures or thinking that I might just randomly start my period. And I'm 27 now, and only until, I actually think it was our workshop, when NIXI Body came into England netball, I found out that periods shouldn't be painful. And this has been a thing for like 9 years. I would have the worst periods, and I remember when I speak to coaches, I'd be like, well, this period's going to take me out of training, but they still wouldn't really understand. And I do believe that sometimes, you know, coaches, parents, teachers, they need to understand that periods play a massive part as a female athlete, and it shouldn't be anything taboo. I do believe that sometimes it's an awkward conversation to have, and, you know, as an athlete, I don't know, there's quite a few of us here, sometimes it's like we just need to take it on the chin, like, we're athletes, it's going to hurt, just get on with it, pop a couple paracetamols, I remember mine was mefenamic acid, and just get on with it. But I don't think it should be like that, and I don't think it should be a tough conversation to have with your coach or your parents or your GP. Now, I don't have, like, my periods aren't as painful, but that's because I've had to do so much research on, you know, I now take magnesium, I take iron tablets, my diet has completely changed, but I wish I knew that when I was younger, and unfortunately... It's so nice, like, having netball here, like, being able to, like, genuinely, I think NETBALLHer has been just so massive with the fact that you're able to see us athletes talk about it, but when I was younger I didn't have that, so I had to basically deal with it all by myself. And I remember one time, like, I think when I was like 20, I was like, well, I'm not having my periods every month, am I like infertile? But I shouldn't be thinking about that when I'm 20, like that should not be a thought process in my head. Now I have my periods every month, and it's actually quite refreshing because I'm like, this is normal, this is what it should feel like. I shouldn't be feeling like I'm going to throw up, or I shouldn't be passing out, or my cramps shouldn't be, you know, super painful. And I remember I was having periods for 2 weeks, like that is not normal. So guys, if you haven't bleeding for 2 weeks, go to your GP or go to a doctor, because that is not normal. But yeah, I do think that was something that really affected me when I was younger, but it's nice that I'm able to now have it under control, and I can also be an advocate and also talk to athletes, or like my younger sister, who she also kind of has what I had. I'm able to talk through it with her and, you know, be like, change your diet, or maybe we just need to have a look at what will work and what won't work for you. I think another thing that was probably a massive thing for me when I was younger was period pads and tampons. Like period pads, just the feeling of it sometimes, and then you go to tampons, but then, you know, found out recently actually from me, she told me that tampons aren't great for you, or the ones that are currently in the store, because there's like toxic stuff in there and it can cause toxic shock. And then I'm like, okay, then what do I use? And then NIXI Body came about. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did explain to Coni, like, this is what I've been thinking about, and she actually gave me some knickers, and I was on my, I think the last couple of days of my period, and I actually trained in those knickers, and I was like, why have I not tried this? Like, what's going on? And then they have swimsuits, I'm literally promoting. And they have swimsuits as well, and that's like, now I can happily go into training, go into camp, we have pool recovery, and I'm like, well, I can grab a NIXI Body bikini, because I know that you guys...
Do you want us to leave the panel?
You guys cater for us, and I'm really glad that now this is a big conversation that's happening, and young girls are now able to, happily have these conversations without any stress. And I was actually speaking to one of my male friends recently about periods and saying, now that we're going into these next steps, I think it should be a big conversation for like male teachers, like allowing the young students to be able to have these conversations with the male teachers, rather than those male teachers being like, oh, speak to Miss or speak to Mrs. Like, you deal with it because you know what you're going through, and then having the right products for them, especially in schools, because some people aren't able to, afford period, I say like £5 for a pack of pads, and that's actually pretty expensive for some people. So just making sure they have it there, and also supporting the young girls who are about there. Yeah.
Do you know what I love about this, Fran? If you remember when we
first started NETBALLHer, it was really hard to get the athletes talking, wasn't it? And Fran was the first one, actually, Fran Vitality Rose, was the first one really to stand up and support NETBALLHer. You really were. And now, I mean, what Hallie said, and all the the people that are on the rows that are on the video, and the Super League players, it really has, over the last 2.5 years, opened up conversations. And you're talking amongst yourselves now, aren't you? And doing TikTok stuff and all sorts of things. So it started 2.5 years ago, and I think we're in a place now where it's being more openly talked about, so amazing.
Shout out to Fran.
So over to Kirsty, we've obviously so far talked about netball, understandably. From RFU's work, and RFU are doing a lot of work in the female health space as well, and actually just to call out for how amazing the women's rugby team is, and but they've got to bring it home for us. So what are you seeing in terms of this context, and the urgent gaps, and what you're doing in rugby to address this?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly, and yes, everyone fingers crossed for Saturday. I have absolutely no part in it, but I will check out well, rugby is unlike netball, it's predominantly a male sport, as some of you may know, of 150 years of the RFU and males, and actually our women are pretty good at rugby, and we are starting to build. So we are in much more of an emerging stage of it as a sport, and we are bringing our body along the way, I would say, Kelly, if I'm being honest around it, and Lisa's up there, and you know where we're at, Lisa. But I do think that we have got some really exciting pieces. So we have a fantastic clinical lead, who Dr. Karen Jones, who also played at elite level in the Red Roses, which helped, but she really believes it. And so I'm not medical at all. So Karen and I sit in a room, and I say, Karen, I don't understand 95% of what she says, and she says, I don't understand what you say. So it's a great partnership, but no, absolutely fantastic, because I can come from a non-medical point of view, and what Karen always says to us is, women's health is not medical, Kirsty. Like, this isn't the stuff that's important. Actually, the stuff that's important is being able to talk to our rugby players that go out at the weekend and make them feel like they are included and they are educated in what they are and what their bodies are. Now, in terms of our priorities, there are a number of things that we're looking at across the RFU. So some things which are similar to netball and football, etc. Lower limb injury prevention. What does that look like for women compared to men? And are we doing the right things, or are we just doing what the men have always done? So there's a really important piece around that. There's also for us, which is, because we're a contact sport, is concussion, and concussion is hugely important. And we're looking at that, and I'm looking at Alex, so because you can talk about that. But massively important, and for women, what does that mean? And making sure that we've really got the right research, and we can translate that research to look after our athletes for the long term, because that is going to be critical for the success of our sport. And then the other piece is what Janet's spoken about, and what you guys have spoken about, is a menstrual cycle, and understanding that and continuing to understand that, and the impact that has on our athletes and players across the board. But also, probably what's really important is the work that you've done, Kelly, is translating all of that research and all of that complicated stuff to make it real life for your average person that can pick it up and digest it and feel empowered by it. And I think that's the bit that we really want to work on as a sport.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And together we can do that. I think that's the beauty of the Female Health NGB Collective is that we're all doing this work more and more now, aren't we? And we've had conversations in sports of we can only go so far on our own, and actually if we're united in what we're trying to do, sharing resources, we can reach more women and girls to begin with, and our brand can reach more resources, and our resources can too. So, you know, we've had a few meetings so far, haven't we? And we're really, really excited about the work we can do together. Brilliant. Okay, so we talked about stigma and breaking stigma, and we know Ebony alluded to it in her opening around the fact that in some societies black girls are more likely to feel adultified. Women in sports, research mostly, so just look at research down there. Women and girls, the women in sport research has really shown that, hasn't it, around how girls are, black girls are adultified. South Asian women are more likely to face late-stage diagnosis. Disabled women often experience access barriers. So we can't think of women as one homogenous group. And we generally, female health is still stigmatised as much as we're having the conversation here. I often say I feel like I'm in my own echo chamber because we're all talking about it, but there's a whole streets of London out there that aren't talking about it. So, and then you look at certain societies where it's even more stigmatised. So that's a really important thing that we need to address together. So on that note, Coni. I mean, you've already had a good intro to your product. NIXI, by the way, is the official partner of NETBALLHer. I should have said that in my intro, and I realised I didn't. So sorry, Coni. The official partner of NETBALLHer. So just talk to us about misconceptions about periods and what you're doing to change that.
I mean, misconceptions around periods, we've got to be out of here by 8 o'clock, haven't we? So I'll try and pick a few ones. I mean, pain is definitely something we come up against. You know, we talked about that. In my line of work, where I'm constantly asking women, what's your flow like? What absorbency do you need when we're helping them pick knickers? I'm constantly surprised at how many girls, but also grown women, and grown women who are athletes who, you know, are the epitome of health. I'm like, yeah, I need to change my pad every 1 hour because I'm that heavy, and it's just like, that's normal. And I'm just like, that's, you know, I think we talked about that in our session, Hallie. I'm like, okay, I hate to break it to you, that's not normal. So they sort of say, I can't wear period underwear because my period's too heavy. And it's like, but your healthy period should be able to wear underwear. And actually, it's sort of breaking down that conversation, I think, is really, really important because, you know, and Janet, you can probably speak to this more than I, but it's like, you know, heavy periods are usually a sign that something is not right. It could be fibroids, it could be adenomyosis, endometriosis, a whole range of things, but just building on what you said earlier, it's like that is a sign from your body to go to the doctor. So I think that's really something to highlight and something we talk about a lot. And again, as Hallie said, thank you so much, and Ruby said, you know, I think there is a lot of misconceptions around period care. I think that, again, it's been talked about more and more, and this isn't me to say, bash, all tampons are evil, go buy NIXI pants, because that would be, you know, a bit on the nose. But it's about, it's about giving women and girls more choice. I think that there's a real interesting trend of like, we often just use period care that our mums used, and we just kind of, we don't, no questions asked, we take it. We're not checking the ingredients, we're not checking what's going on, we're not looking into the impact that they have on our bodies. And I feel like we're starting to, and we're having that conversation quite a lot, but if there isn't another choice, if there isn't the innovation to give products another choice, then there is a kind of like, okay, well, I don't like the fact that pads make me feel horrible, or you can see them when I'm playing sport, or I don't like the fact that apparently tampons aren't good for you. But if there aren't incredible brands out there that are creating organic, safe tampons, or underwear like us that makes leak-proof protection secure but really, really discreet, so you can wear them on a netball court or anywhere else, then where do women go? I think we need to give choice, and that's sort of the role of product innovation. And also, every single product in this store, not just us, has been built out of a woman experiencing something and going, why is there no product on the market to solve this issue? You know, that this is the problem, that the vast majority of, especially in sport, you know, kit, products, all this sort of thing is very male-led, it's built for the male body, and we need women going, hang on, I'm not going to put up with this, I'm not going to put up with the fact that I don't go to netball when I'm on my period because I'm worried about leaking. I'm going to try and change something and do something different, and that's definitely what we try to do at NIXI, and like I said, every other product in the store.
Yeah, and amazing product. If people haven't seen it, obviously they're right there.
just around the corner. We've got our big England netball partner sign.
Yeah,
Right,
excellent. There you go. But yeah, I mean, you've activated at major events, haven't you? And I sort of listened to some of the conversations, and it is just astounding. Again, going right back to the start, the base level of people's information is pretty low. Isn't it?
And it really is not just girls. Like I said, it is. You know, we're constantly surprised, and Hallie, it's really nice of you to sort of give us that shout out of, you know, when we're speaking to elite athletes, you kind of assume there would be a level of knowledge, but they're not, and that's not no one's fault. It's just that schools aren't talking about this stuff. You know, doctors aren't necessarily getting the right information, so that's why we need campaigns like yours.
Excellent, thank you. Alex, coming to you, sit very, very patiently. From your experience as an athlete, which you've got lots of, do you feel athletes can talk openly about these issues, or has it changed over time? What's your experience? Well, I feel something's coming.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me here this evening, and actually it's such a breath of fresh air to listen to this. And if I look at Hallie, age 27, you're so young. Age 40 now, I think it's really important to share my age, because coming through the system, and I've got an old teammate in the room, I would not have spoken about anything. And do you know what, I can feel my heart beating so quickly, because even now, because of my experiences growing up, this conversation just would not have been had. Having somebody like yourself in the room wasn't a thing. Female health didn't exist. It literally didn't. I was just the same as every other human, but we are different. And, you know, I wish I'd known that brothers could be brothers. What do I mean? My brother growing up, when I started my period, I put my tampons in our bathroom, and every single time I started my period, I put them there, they'd be thrown on my bedroom floor. Now, I love my brother, and he is an amazing human. That is not a reflection on him. That's a reflection of society. It was, what are these? These are disgusting. Get them out of the bathroom. Again, as I say, please, my brother is... it's not him. That's a society's reflection about female periods. I wish I knew I could wear shorts to play sport in, which, by the way, you couldn't when I was my age. I was at the era where you had to wear gym knickers. It literally makes me shut up. I have like the most horrific experience of PE in school, and I was an elite athlete because I used to have to wear green knickers. It's so embarrassing, whereas now, thank goodness the world has changed so much that girls, dare I say it, they can wear shorts, and we have a choice, and these things have such a big impact. So, you know, I wish I grew up in an era where these conversations were had. Within elite sport, when I grew up, it was a case of you got on with it. I used to have bad period pains, but it was a case of, you know, I didn't want to appear weak. All the dialogue that thankfully has changed, it is so much better. One thing that I do remember in our training program, it was later towards the back end of my career, probably 2013-14 onwards. I remember our strength and conditioning coach, he started to ask us when day one of our period was. And honestly, you'd think he'd asked for the secrets of your entire life to be unfolded and to hand in your diaries. And the reason I'm sharing this, it's really positive because of how far we have come and how far the conversation has come. And it now is a part of training, and there is a better understanding around the needs and the differences and potential injuries that can come around your menstrual cycle are so important. So, did we? No. Do those conversations happen now? Thankfully, yes. And it is an absolute breath of fresh air to listen to Hallie around the depth in which we now go into such an important topic that literally enables people to play, or doesn't.
Yeah, totally. I remember when we first started NETBALLHer, and I said to Frank, the exec, and we've worked together for years and years and years. I said, why do we think about this? In fact, we talked about this, Liz and I worked together for years as well. Like, why have we never thought about this? It's crazy. Val on the video before, I've worked with Val, you've probably worked with Val over the years, and she only told me her story with the filming day for that campaign, and she really struggled through menopause. She had all sorts of things going on. She had operations, never told anybody. She'd stopped coaching, stopped playing sport, stopped playing netball. She was such a massive netballer. And I only found out recently, I've probably worked with her for the last 20 odd years. So that's how things have changed, and we've still got some way to go, haven't we? But it's definitely moving on. Shona, I gave you a big up in the start that you have some new research to share with us this evening. So what myths do you still see from a research perspective? What myths do you see from the everyday woman out there?
Thank you for having me as well. Having worked in data for, nearly a decade or over a decade now, I've actually never witnessed so many separate surveys from separate people, including my own, confirming the same points. It just doesn't happen because you ask the questions differently, different representations and things like that, but every single data stat, I have the same ones, and that is from 500 women that I asked over the weekend from Superdrug. So it's just kind of quite staggering, but also quite sad, I guess, in a way, and you can also see how desperately something like this is needed. And here we feel your heartbeat going, like, how is this not kind of discussed? But the nuance in research, I guess, when it comes to myths, is so much about what you believe about yourself and your body is personal to you, your experience, your identity. But what the data point that was most consistent, I have to represent the Superdrug journals correctly, was basically 72% of women stated that at some point in their lives, not a doctor, not anyone like that, someone in their personal life has basically minimised or told them that they're overreacting. It's just a phenomenally large number. So I guess that kind of the myth is also socially constructed about what you're being told about yourself, not only just what you're feeling. So when I think about, okay, what is the biggest myth? It's what it means to participate, that it should feel one way, it should look one way, which is the myth itself. Participation is anyone and it's everything. So you can play netball pregnant, you can do an Ironman on your period if you're wearing NIXI. So it's participation that's in itself, that's what it is, and it's about choice. So I think what's so powerful about something like today is the education, the encouragement, the confidence to make that choice. It is also okay if your period is so painful that you want to not play that day and you go and seek resource and help, but it's that not sitting in silence and taking a back seat that I think is what today is all about.
And I think that's what we have to keep on reminding us. I mean, yours was the 500 everyday women, wasn't it? And repeat what I said, but we're sitting here talking about it because it's really important to us and we're doing things as organisations. But those 500 women are representative of general population, and they're not, and they're very likely to have stopped doing sport or are disengaged from sport for the very reasons we're talking about tonight. And if we want to do more with what we're doing, it's those women that we need to reach out to and help, isn't it? So thank you for doing the research on. I love it. Yeah. Kate, hello. So Kate Pears is Strategic Lead for Campaigns Sport England. If anyone has followed those Girl Camp campaigns over the last
10 years.
10 years. The latest campaign, We Like the Way You Move. I have to pause because I still always want to sing it, which is good because it's worked, it's a new one. Just talk to us about we've obviously launched our campaign today, the importance of campaigns and why you've gone the way you have done with this Girl Can of the last 10 years and now.
Yeah, but thanks so much for having me. So This Girl Can is all about celebrating women getting active in whatever way works for them. And our research has found that women who are the least active tend to face the greatest inequalities. And quite often those barriers of being active are well beyond their control. They can be intersectional barriers, like structural barriers, cultural barriers, and also health barriers or lack of information or misinformation. And so for us, it's really important to campaign to work together with the likes of you all, and it's such an important campaign. I love it. I'm so happy that it exists. So happy that we're lending our support as well, because if we aren't talking about these barriers, if we aren't reducing the misnomers around health, then women and girls, as we've heard, will just suffer in silence. So it's really important to celebrate women being active in whichever way they choose, and for them just to be active and get moving.
Brilliant, thank you for sharing that as well. And if you haven't seen the video, it's great, and it will make you sing We Like the Way You Move. Okay, so cross-sector insights. We've talked a little bit around how important it is that we share our own insights. And just talking about the insights is one thing, but actually doing something about it is another. So from Janet, come back to you, from a Wellbeing of Women perspective, what Close the Health Gap campaign, what did that do, and what was the sort of the impact of the campaign?
Well, we ran it because we've got a health collective, and that health collective is a coalition of grassroots organisations, women and indeed men, out in the community who are doing some fantastic work at a grassroots level to raise awareness, to support women when it comes to their health. And that's across everything. That can be period problems, it can be cancer, it can be menopause, it doesn't matter. But as we say, there is a glaring gap when it comes to health outcomes for women from marginalised communities. If I just give you a few figures, black women are at least 2 times more likely to die during pregnancy and childbirth, and in the 6 weeks after. Asian women are the same. Their figures are similar. And we know that 63% of disabled women just don't have access to cervical screening, which is just a real shame. So what we did with our health campaign was we were asking people to tag their MPs after the last election to push for change, and this is all about trying to improve, the gap, or take the gap away, in fact, really. And I must say that we think sport can learn a great deal. If anything, it's shining a light on, inequalities from marginalised communities that in healthcare, then you could certainly do the same, I think, when it comes to sport. And I have to say, Ebony, it was a really inspiring opening speech, thank you. And Hallie, having you as an advocate and a sports, somebody in sport is just brilliant, because we do need to normalise conversations, and we so need to embed it all in education. I'm looking here at sort of Dr. Helen, who keeps nodding and all the rest of it. I think we need to get together. But it's not just about periods, it's everything. It's menopause, it's fertility. All these issues, miscarriage, have been hidden away for too long and normalised. So we all think that everything is normal when it's not. So we really need to, draw all these things out, and particularly for women from marginalised communities. And really, I think there's so much about, driving inclusion here, which I think the world of sport can, pick up on. So, I really hope that, you can see what we've done, and we can learn a bit from what you've done, and you can start to really improve the numbers of women taking part, and actually it's levelling the playing field so that everybody has the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think I often hear when I talk to our coaches or our development staff, how do we go about having conversations with those people in those communities? So we know the stats, but how do we go about doing it? And I think we've got healthcare professionals that can help us have those conversations. We've got community groups who do this work, and we had a session with the England level staff yesterday actually around the importance of working in place, as in local communities, local organisations that are really talking to these communities. So I think it's understanding all of what Janet said, and then really working out in those local communities who are the best people to help support those women and girls, because that's the only time we're going to make a difference, isn't it?
Totally. I mean, and it's about understanding everybody's issues and listening. I mean, the most important thing is what we hear and what we've heard tonight is that for too long women have been under the impression that painful, heavy periods are normal, that menopause is something that doesn't really exist. I mean, until 5 or 6 years ago, nobody talked about menopause. And if you think about miscarriage, the things are getting better there. There's now the certificate, but these things have all been, taboo subjects, shrouded in mystery, and people have been too nervous to talk about them. And actually, they're normal things. As I say, 12 periods a year, 40 years. That's pretty normal, isn't it? Every woman will go through the menopause. So if this is all normal, why has it been hidden away? And so we just need to bring that to the fore and make sure that we are aware where there are inequalities, that you know, we're listening even more and actually taking action. Because I think that's the other problem we found, is that there's been a lot of listening, a lot of reports, but not much do and action.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Janet. Shona, back to your insight that you have been working on. So from Superdrug's data perspective, how might we take that data and better use that data in sport to change what we're doing?
So I guess, again, I went to the customers, and I think it's good to have the comparison the way that you've got the kind of, I guess, representative to an extent public compared to elite sport. But we asked, what was the top reason why you have, in the short term and the long term, but focusing on the short term, I guess, abstain from some sport and participation? And it was periods. So that was above minor injuries, so we had a big, long list. And I think also from a robust data point of view, I'm not sure everyone knows that maybe it wasn't their period, it could have been another item that we had on the list, whether it could have been endometriosis or things like that. So that period stat could be, you know, lower. So I think that's kind of what sport can do. And to echo almost what everyone has said is, how do we talk about a period that it's not a default to sit on the sideline? When we, especially in the formative years of education, I very, very clearly remember the swimming lesson. Oh, don't have to do it because I'm on my period. And that is just accepted, and I see around the room that's quite universal. Whereas, why isn't that met with education and a term for confidence? Didn't know you did swimwear. Again, a little plug. But imagine if you had that at school. So I think it does apply completely beyond periods as well, whether it be thrush, BV, all these things that, why isn't it met with education and confidence building rather than, well, let's sideline you now. So yeah, that's probably, we can continue to work with the data that we have. Accessing healthcare data is always a privilege and we take it very seriously, but we do want to continue to support you guys obviously through NETBALLHer and you know, England Netball itself, very cool. That what we are seeing, what gaps we're seeing, what feedback we're getting, we always try and capture feedback. So I think it's an ongoing conversation that we have to have.
And as we said before, you're talking to the everyday women as well, so it's that live data, isn't it, speaking?
Yes, and it's also kind of the purchasing data that we can provide. So if we know someone that is returning to continuously buy thrush medication, BV, on an ongoing basis, what, in a GDPR compliant way, can we do to better help that customer? You know, I shouldn't necessarily reference Boots, but they've done some brilliant work.
They sell
data's good data, yeah. But you know, they did a brilliant study using their I can't remember what it's called now, the loyalty card. The Advantage card, so I just went to say how can you do, but you know, about behaviours and what they learn about cancer. So like, we want to kind of start pioneering women's health in that space and what we can continue to do.
Yeah, and we can learn from that.
Yeah,
exactly. Brilliant, thank you. And Alex, similar question to you in terms of Vitality research. So Vitality have done some amazing research in the last few years, haven't they? What's the standout sort of bits that you'd like to share with us, and what can we take from that?
Yeah, very quickly and very importantly, Vitality did an amazing study around active women, healthy lives, and you know, really just specifically understanding the barriers that women have that stop them engaging in female activity. And you know, there were many things that came out, some absolutely horrendous stats in there. I think it was 23% of women get 150 minutes of exercise each week. 41% of women exercise for weight loss. So it's actually, how can we start to change the dialogue and engage with our women to help them and encourage them to enjoy activity? Only it was 7% of women do activity for muscular and physical benefit. The stats were really terrifying, and they identified different stages, life stages. How much education is there for a young person starting their period and engaging in sport? How much education is there for somebody who is starting out on a journey of motherhood around fertility? You know, if I think back to my experience, conversations, feeling comfortable, I am a mum, I'm very blessed, a mother of 3 beautiful girls, and I was an elite athlete, and during pregnancy I was terrified about what I could and couldn't do, and the judgment attached to if I went for a run at so-and-so pregnant, what would people think of me, and is it healthy, is it safe? Postpartum, there was some huge stats. It was 74% of women's relationship with activity changes after they've had a child. 74%. 4% of women engage in team sports after having children. So how can we make sport and activity accessible when you become a mum? I feel like I'm a mum of 3. Sport was my absolute passion, but there's no flexibility around it.
Sport doesn't change.
There's no childcare support. There's no, genius thinking. We're intelligent human race. How are we in this position where we're not doing these things because of life's almost, which many consider life's greatest gift? So I think, Vitality are doing so much in that space. They're back in a new women's sports research project at Loughborough University. So how can we think more logically around these problems? How can we create products? I mean, here we go. We don't need to think about that space, it's done. But how can we, through products design, help engage women to stay active? How can we support women who want to still compete whilst they're pregnant, postpartum, menopause? These things are so important and so vital, because the stats, as you say, are just absolutely shocking.
I think that's a really important point around, we know this, but do we change the structure of sport around it? And that's what we've been really looking at as a sports system at netball. Is there's one thing having a programme, back to netball programme for example, but does that programme think about the fact that when that woman's returning to netball, they've actually just had a baby and things are going on with their bodies and they've got kids at home, they've probably got some guilt going on, or whatever else. So it's about adapting the sport and, most importantly, training those coaches who are working with, or leaders who are working with those women, to meet the women where they're at. I feel that's a phrase that we're using a lot at the moment, but it's true, isn't it? We can't just be, turn up and play and leave again. It's got to be more supportive to keep them coming back.
It's absolutely that. I think it's the education, whether it be, and I know we've spoken around schools, coaches. I know I've spoken about my brother, but actually it's educating both females and males in this space. So there is a broad understanding, and women go into sport feeling comfortable, feeling safe, and not feeling judged, and doing it for the right reasons. And I think there's many amazing examples where that happens, but it's a barrier we should always be trying to lift and always trying to go further. And a campaign such as this is so spectacular, because for someone who grew up as a young person in elite sport, not having these conversations, being terrified of them, looking in a mirror and thinking you're different was terrifying. Actually, it's making it light and easy, and I've learned so much tonight. It's amazing, and being able to take those conversations back into places where you can truly make a difference, from grassroots all the way up, makes evenings, panels, and campaigns like this gold dust.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very well said, because that's the really important point with this. We've got anyone that's done campaigns in this room, well, look at Kate and others, you can labour over it kind of for months and months and months. We've looked at different options and what we can do, and actually kept on coming back to that. How do we make it light, meaningful, engaging in a way that sparks curiosity? And that's what we kept on coming back to. What can we do that sparks curiosity to get these types of conversations going outside of these types of rooms?
And if I may quickly, it's curiosity and influence.
Yeah.
So if every single woman in the room now made a pledge to go back and influence one or two others, or have a conversation, or upskill somebody, or change something, or bring someone into the room, made a massive impact.
Which, by the way, you're not leaving tonight unless you do that. So there's a lock-in that happens here, I've heard. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Hallie, from your journey, what is... I might have to choose another one because you sort of partly answered this, but what's one thing you wish you knew when you were younger?
So, women in sport, I saw your campaign about basically black girls most likely dropping out quite early, and I was basically one of those girls. I think just firstly, like where I was a minority, didn't have that many black girls playing at the club. I think I was probably the only white girl, black girl, sorry, on my team. And luckily I had like my older sister playing it. I had made a couple friends, and sometimes when you go into a new sport you want to kind of see people who look like you, and netball wasn't really, I don't know how to explain, but it was always like, why don't you play basketball rather than netball? And it was quite tough trying to like navigate that as a young girl, but I had such a strong support system, and I ended up going to a sports college where actually it was such a diverse college. There was Asians, there was black people, there was white people, there was everyone, and I had a coach who basically just made sure that we all felt comfortable with each other, and I think that's what we need to do today. I've definitely seen a growth now, like the diversity is crazy. However, sometimes I do think, like, for example, I've had these conversations, we don't read, like, what if there was a Muslim girl who wanted to play netball, how would, like, England netball navigate with that when it comes with Ramadan, and, you know, they're covering their headwear, their hair and all of that, but it's not really something I wish I knew, but I just hope that we get better at it and figure out a way to just make sure everyone feels like they're part of it. I think another thing today, which I think I'm a massive advocate about, is like hair. Being a black girl who I don't like the rain, I hate water on my hair, I think it just affects my hair in general. You made a comment saying that not all women are the same. So I think there should be like different sections where it's like, okay, how do you navigate yourself during Ramadan when you're fasting in netball? How do you sort out your hair for a 4C girl when you're going into sport? Like just so many conversations we can have, and you know, there's like culture as well, that's a massive part. I come from a Nigerian background where education is the most important thing, but luckily I'm a Nigerian girl who plays for England as well. I'm both Nigerian and English, but luckily there's people who are like, well, Halli's able to do it, so I can do it. And I think it's really important that we just keep pushing that.
Yeah, and women in sports research, black girls research, if anyone hasn't looked at it, but and Lisa, do you want to add anything to that? Particularly on the hair bit came out really strongly within that research.
Yeah, it came out really strongly, and it was an interesting one to know what to do with as well, because it I think is sort of connected to that idea of it being about appearance and what it looks like. And what we really wanted to bring across was it's not about what it looks like. It's that sense of identity and expression and all of those bits. There's so much more than just hair that I think we perhaps don't understand.
Yeah, I think that's just so amazing, because I remember juniors I would have like braids as my thing. Like I love having my braids, different colours, but I was actually on a tour in South Africa and I was told that I had to tuck it in my dress. But nowadays that's not a conversation that's being had, but why was I being forced to tuck my hair in my dress when I would see my counterparts basically like have their ponytail, which is actually quite a weapon when you're getting whipped in the eye, you know, when you're defended. But it's like, why do I have to put my braids? My braid's in a braid. And I think like for that to come out and see that, and you know, hair's such a big thing for like black girls, because you can't leave your afro out, because then it just affects you when you're training, and then you just want to make sure you feel comfortable, because when you feel good, you play good. But yeah, I feel like it was a really good campaign, so yeah, thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so last sort of panel question, then we're going to open up to you guys if you've got any questions. There's your moment to think about them. So, collaboration, we've talked a little bit about it. I've alluded to the fact that sports are working together. We're obviously here tonight working more collaboratively. We had an amazing Partners Day, whenever it was, I can't remember, Coni, when it was. We had all of our partners in the room, we've got a few of them in the room tonight. And we literally just said, how can we work better together to address this agenda? And actually that was the first start of this campaign, actually, wasn't it? Because we said, as a group, as partners that could really drive change, Vitality, Superdrug online doctor in the room, the Army, Soft and Gentle, obviously NIXI, all our partners, how can we do this to better? Because we've all got a role to play, we've all got reach. So, question for all of you, same question. What do you see as the power of collaboration, and what can you do as your organisation to sort of drive that collaboration? So I'll start with you, because we've obviously had this conversation before.
Yeah. So, I mean, gosh, I think the power of collaboration is, I'm kind of seeing it, it's strange. I was saying earlier, I've worked with wellbeing women in the past when I used to really focus on women's health and fertility and reproductive health. And it's really now exciting to see those the conversations we're having today. When I used to do events previously, it would feel quite everyone in the room was a doctor or a health professional. And it's really exciting to now see these conversations coming into sport. And that doesn't happen without collaboration. You know, I think what sport does so well is bring people together. It galvanises people, and there's so much story in sport. And I think some of the sort of mini campaigns that NIXI have done with our sort of partnership with you guys, they've been sort of our best, engaged pieces of content over, the last year. We did an amazing one about maternal mental health with one of your clubs. We, had Vitality Roses sharing their experience and stuff. And I think that storytelling piece is so powerful and it's so emotive in sport. And I think for us, collaborating outside of our echo chamber, and I think that can be said for a product like ours, kind of collaborating with sport or kind of sports collaborating with each other, I think it's like we need to bust out of our echo chamber, because otherwise we're just preaching to the choir and we're not going to spread those sort of this information that we're talking about today. We're not going to break that stigma and that shame if we're just talking to our little corner of the world, of the internet very often. So I think that kind of cross-pollination between brands, between sports, between disciplines is huge.
Yeah, we're an ally voice, aren't we?
Totally.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Alex, thanks to you.
Yeah, I think it's when there's been lots of conversation around supporting women's sport. We can tune in and watch, or we can actually take a seat in a stadium. And I think with the stage in collaboration, where we can join the conversation or take a seat at the table, and it's taking a seat at the table together. I think this evening I've taken so much from the incredible women on the panel and everybody in the audience. My role as president of Women's Hockey is to go back and to have these conversations and make sure they're on our agendas, make sure they're in our strategies. They will be and they are, but make sure the conversations are being had at the right time, in the right moment, with the right ears listening. And make sure for me, it's translating then down our pathway. So at the core of this are young people. I am who I am because of my perceptions as a child and that influence, and there is no blame there. That is society and that's where we were, but I want to make sure that young girls feel really comfortable to have a conversation when they need to have it. That they can go to anybody, whether they are male, whether they are female, whether they are young or whether they are old, and ask for help. Because it's such a minefield being a human, a male or a female human. It's a minefield, and if we can start to collaborate, actually take a seat at the table and raise and support our young people to ask questions, because it's okay to do so, then I feel like we've done our job.
That's well said. Thank you. Shona.
So I think collaboration, to echo all that's been said, I think there's a role and responsibility for retailers and large brands that have reach is investment. To paraphrase, I'm not sure I'll get it right, but at the Ballon d'Or this week, Renee Slayer said, invest in women, invest in women's sport, and everyone will benefit. And I think that when you have millions of people coming to your website or coming to your stores, what's that responsibility? So as healthcare providers, yes, we want to educate and we want to make sure that our content's in the right place, but also we have nurses, we have pharmacists. We want to make sure that we are continuously echoing that education and supporting and collaborating, but ultimately investing.
Brilliant, thank you.
Hi, I'm going to just pick up on something that you said, Alex, which is that there are so many key stages from that vitality report, and I'm going to sort of start at the beginning. When young girls, they go through puberty. There's no education, and this is why this partnership is so important, because actually if we all knew when we were young that movement and sport and activity is not only good for our physical health, and it will prevent us from actually in our older age living far longer in worse health. Because most of us think here that we'll probably die of cancer, and actually most women will either die of heart disease, frailty, or dementia. And we can actually affect those three things if we start sport and activity at a young age. So that's why I think this collaboration is so important, because we're going to help generations of girls and women to live longer, fitter and healthier and happier, I hope.
Spotting the agenda right there.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Janet.
Amazing, Janet. This is like a school day for me. I'm learning so much. I'll take it in two parts. So one, I think for us, internally, is England hockey. England rugby. It's been with Alex. that was my old job. It was that we didn't collaborate with our clubs and our governing body and our elite game enough. So there was that, and actually this whole women's health and having the Women's World Cup, Home World Cup here, has enabled us to do stuff we wouldn't have even dreamt of doing 10 years ago. So for example, one of the things that we've done is we have opened up an application for any club in the country to receive upgrades on their toilet facilities, because if anyone's ever been in a rugby club toilet facilities, they're not perhaps the way you would want to go, but also provide sanitary provision in bins and packages for every club that wanted to apply. Now that, for some of our staff members who've been here for a long time, mainly men, they didn't even want to write in an email. Like I said, like, it was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to talk about? And that's what we've been able to change. And have some of that power. So we've had that in over 600 of our clubs now. Also, our Red Roses, so our England team, are talking about it and want to talk to clubs about that stuff. That's not us forcing that on them. That's organic because they really believe in the cause. So there's a lot of collaboration there, Kelly. But then the other side of it is, it doesn't really matter whether you're playing rugby or netball or hockey or cricket. Like, women's health is women's health, and if women are playing sport, it doesn't really matter. There is no competitive edge to this at all. So being able to work with Kelly and Kate from the FA and Karen, anyone beginning with K basically, quite an exclusive group, I don't know why, I don't know whether we got that, has been amazing, because we've all chatted and we've said, look, we've done this, why don't you do, we're doing some training for these, why don't you do it at Netball? Or Netball have done these fantastic things and let us be part of it. And it has been really refreshing, hasn't it, Kelly?
It really has.
Completely broke down the barriers and just go, this is us, let's do it, we're a collective, we're custodians of this sport, let's leave it in a better place. And that's where we've been, so I think it's genuine collaboration. Really helped.
Absolutely perfectly said. I think we can carry on doing what we do in our sports. And we can be collaborative and do even more. So it's not stopping us doing what we do in our sports, it's be more powerful together, isn't it? So yeah, thank you. Sally?
Yeah, for me, I think collaboration is so important. Without England Netball's collaboration with NIXI Body, I wouldn't really know about all the products that you basically supply. And I think the fact that we're all here together, it's like women supporting women, and we all have the same aim. I think it's really important for us to support women's sport in general, because we're trying to build the sport, but also making sure that we're reaching that community. So also collaborating with the community and the grassroots, because they're the people that we're trying to hit, because if we're able to hit them while they're young, then these conversations will be normalised.
Yeah. And I think I've got Claire sitting like right there, just waiting for me to say. So Super League clubs, new era for Super League, professionalisation of the game. Amazing, these conversations are happening, and obviously happening across the different clubs as well, which is amazing. What role do the clubs have with this agenda and the collaboration? Because again, and I think similar to what Kirsty's just said in terms of our work as cross sports, it's probably an area that the clubs can support one another with as well, and not do it all in their own ways. What do you have any? Sorry, I've thrown this one at you, but do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's like, for example, with sport, we all know that a lot of fans come to watch the individuals. So I think it's so important where clubs can use that as a benefit for them, but also the community. So as athletes, we need to take it on ourselves and the responsibility to actually want to have these conversations and go out there and speak to people about women's health, speak to people about what we're so passionate about. And if we're able to get clubs on it and just finding the time, because I understand we're now in a professional era and we're so busy majority of the time, but if you want to have that time and if you want to make time, you can. And I think we just need to make sure that we're having those conversations. And I've always said I'm going to be that person to start that conversation. And I know that, like I've always said to my head coach, that one thing about me is I'm so passionate about like pushing sport in low socio-economic backgrounds and communities. And I know that I've always been in Sam's ear, but sorry if I mentioned her name, but my head coach's ear. But I know that because I've talked about it so much, she's now like, okay, we've got to get going. And as athletes, we just need to basically push that.
Yeah. And there's a genuine appetite within the Super League clubs around this agenda and wanting to do more. And I think they really feel that we are the sport to do this. And if we've got these athletes dotted around the clubs that are real advocates, then we're absolutely going to drive that agenda. So yeah, amazing.
Could I add one more thing on
Of course,
collaboration?
yeah.
Can Can I borrow your mic? Sorry, just as we're talking, and I think Shona, you made a really good point on we need to invest in women's sport, but I think that something we see is, I agree, brands and the people that partner with have a responsibility to make sure that partnerships and collaborations go deeper than just slapping a logo on something. I think with this incredible rise in women's sport, which like is amazing, you just get a lot of brands coming in being like, we want to be a partner, we've got loads of money, stick a logo on, and then that's the end of it, and they don't necessarily care. I think a certain football club, I hope there's no one from there in the room. Oh my god. No, there's a certain football club who have a certain large sponsor, which is a buggy brand. But they've got nowhere to park buggies at their stadium when you go. So it's like, we support women, look at us, and it's like, but you're not. And I think that as a small brand, we see that quite a lot, I'm sure, you know, and I think it's really, really, I love our partnership with you guys because it goes so much more than skin deep, and I mean, all of this work, and we're so proud to be partnered with you because everyone's putting their money where their mouth is, and everyone is really fighting for change rather than just acting like at kind of surface level. And I think that's just something that we need to, you know, I think sports clubs should, you know, ask for more from their sponsors than just money.
Yeah.
And money's great, we need the money. But we need more. Like, I think we all need to go a little bit deeper.
But sorry, by working together like we are, and I think Shona, you said it, we can have more reach. You're talking to people that we're not talking to. So, you know, we can, and also with that then opens up different conversations, whether it's investment conversations. And actually you are doing very local work because you're up in a club in a few weeks, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think that really sums it up. We're going from the Vitality Races game in Manchester, and then the next day we're going to Merseyside and Liverpool to work with the grassroots kind of, you know, and it's just, that's what it's all about, isn't it? We want the elite levels, we want the grassroots levels, like you said, we want the people that are coming up, and everyone's really valid in that conversation, so yeah, we're really excited. A big week up north in NIXI.
Yes, going up north, excellent. Right, okay, I did give you a warning that it's going to be Q&A time. I'm going to push it so we can leave, can we give 10 minutes?
Oh, yeah,
okay, cool. Fran, I said right at the start that you've been on the journey with us for the last 2.5 years. You might have gone to another country in the meantime, but you're back now, so that's good. What's your take on this conversation from where we were 2.5 years ago?
Oh, I just think it's been an amazing evening, and I'm just so proud of my teammate Halimat. I just think you've spoken so well about your personal experience, and I loved how you reflected how much we talk about it as a group in CAPS now. You know, we sit in Loughborough in the elite athlete hall eating our dinner with our tray, and you know, we're so open with our conversation, and I think until you see the visual and you've got NETBALLHer kind of there and leading the way in terms of that initiative, it doesn't really spark you to look at yourself and have those discussions. And I think for me, like from when we launched like 2.5 years ago now, which seems crazy, is the development of, we were talking to England athletes, so we were talking to people who were ourselves essentially, whereas now I look in this room and I think it's gone so much further, and that is so great. You guys speak of collaboration, that is going to be how this grows, and I think I love seeing how the initiative has grown, because you know, I know for myself, like, your female athlete health isn't the same the whole time. Like, I'm going through stages, as we've spoken about, but also just because you have your menstrual cycle how it is doesn't mean it stays like that. Experience changes. I have multiple times. So I think it's so good to see how there's new campaigns. It's not just an initiative that came out and the education stayed, it's evolving. You're talking about new data, new research that comes out, and that's all kind of coming together to essentially create like an evolving picture about what female athlete health is and what the education and guidance and advice is. And I think, because I know personally that my female athlete health changes all the time, and it will do as I get older and older. Within the sport, it's just been amazing to hear everything and see how much it's come on in 2.5 years, and how such different voices and diversity within the room now, and great to see some male representation as well here.
Absolutely,
And I think that's super important. You know, we are a female-dominated sport as things stand at the moment, and whilst our men's game is growing and growing, and it's great to see Brian here today representing that, it's so good that we're starting to talk about how we can get men involved in the space too.
Brilliant, thank you. And I just, when you were talking then, Fran, I was like, how amazing is this sport? We've got Ebony, who opened it, who's the most amazing speaker and role model in the sport, followed by these guys, and Fumi hasn't even spoken yet, and Fumi's also absolutely incredible. So, yes, Well, thank you guys, absolutely amazing. So anyway, that's us talking, go for it.
Sorry, I've not a great shout, so I'll try my best. So this room is amazing. Like being here, like I've got some hard to right in the middle, which is a little nerve-wracking. But I obviously am very privileged to be in this room. Like I'm going to play my group chat. I was listening to a Pulse player, and I'm going to be the talk of the town, the netball group chat. But this stuff, this information, I remember seeing it at the Super League Cup, back in March. Yeah. And I took one of the big things home that you had, those big posters, and I took it to my netball team, and we were talking about it. And they'd never heard of NETBALLHer, so you've been here 2 years, I think. And I just then was like, I was looking at Instagram, like trying to follow the links and stuff. Yeah. This room is great, and obviously there's netball players, there's managing director of netball, there's all these amazing things, but how do we filter that down so that my netball team, who is a really diverse netball team, we're like a local Maidenhead division, we're not good. We've got a lot of spirit. But it's ages, races, religions. We're a really diverse team. And I know that half of them don't know this stuff. I'm in a great position. I'm a biomedical scientist by education, and my first job I got was in jaw rights after, so taboo exists for me. But they aren't the same. And when we talk about stuff like this, like how do you talk? I know that they've said things like when we've come to practice about like, oh god, I'm a parent, I can't bother to do it today. Like, how do we get these infographics and the information so that it's, someone said it, I can't remember, but it's like we've got all the reports, we've got all the amazing data. I love data, but how do we get the help?
Yeah, and that I've heard, well, that's probably the purpose behind the campaign, because I've heard that a lot. In fact, it was really embarrassing, because I was doing a keynote at Northumbria University, and there was 4 netball, it was their job, they were doing lectures at every university, but they were also netballers, and all of them said we hadn't heard of NETBALLHer. They were really, really local clubs, and we put the comms out. We know we can trace the comms train that we get some information out, but that's why we need this campaign, because this is about getting that message down to the local people by generating the curiosity. So we need, as I said before, around the people in this room to go out there and spread the message, the development officers that work for England Netball, and we can do that by people sharing their stories. And if there's one thing we've learned from our comms team over the last 2.5 years, is it's the sharing of stories that gets people going and hooks people in. So that's what we hope in this campaign will do, is just to get people sharing their stories, and that'll hopefully pick up the health inequalities and different insights, because different people will be sharing their stories, and that will open up different conversations. Each NETBALLHer champion will then also have their network of champions. And Kirsty alluded to before around training, Rugby's done some brilliant work around their female health volunteers, so that's something we're potentially going to look at together, is how can we duplicate that training, again, best use of resource, to help support our volunteers, because we're quite conscious again that we're asking them to do quite a big job really as volunteers, so how can we best support them, and Rugby's done some brilliant work on that. So we've talked a load, we need to go for it.
In past life I was a PE teacher, not anymore, now work in kind of private sports space, but I just wondered, and it might be that I'm just naive and these things might be happening at the moment, but are there plans for, or is there movement, I guess, to get this stuff throughout schools in the kind of education sector? Because I think it's amazing doing it at clubs and grassroots, and that I think a lot of those people are probably the people that are much more open to hearing it and being educated, and then people who've probably got basic knowledge. But yeah, those people kind of within schools and who perhaps parents and stuff don't support it, or just don't have the knowledge at all, are going to be harder to reach.
Okay, so fortunately Marianne is over there, and Marianne is our comms and campaigns person. So you're absolutely right. We are at the moment, we have produced some resources for teachers with the, can't remember what it's called, PSHE, and we are doing focus groups at the moment to check that everything is okay with them. And then we will have to update them and do all the stuff that you have to do with that. And then we will launch them out next year. So, and we've been told, I think that the best time to do that is May, April or May, I don't know why, but anyway, I'm not going to argue with that. So we will be doing that. And it all comes down to money. if we get lots of money, we'll be able to do lots more. If we don't have lots of money, we'll be able to do limited amounts. But and we've gone this way because actually there are a lot of organisations that are doing activities with girls and boys in schools around the country. It's all fragmented, and actually, you know, what you really need is the Department of Education to do it. And we also know that with teachers, that it's often the person who wasn't in the room at the time when it was chosen to do that particular course. So actually, by having these resources, we hope we take that away. And, you know, I mean, we've got great plans, grand plans for that to develop. So we have period champions and pals in schools, and, you know, so it goes on. And people like Ali will come and talk and do things on Instagram for us, I'm sure. And so, yeah, so those are our plans, and I know other people are doing more. But absolutely, because if we taught all of this in school, then all those people who said, God, the menopause was a bit of a shock, didn't know anything about it, they would know about it because they'd have learned it all. And we need, you know, universities, colleges, religious places, supermarkets. We need all workplaces, everybody to do their bit. So it's got to filter down. Good question.
Conscious of time, conscious of time, talking to you like we were in the system then. We have talked loads this evening. I am even more now passionate about what we can achieve with this campaign, and more passionate particularly on how we can work together. Lisa O'Keefe, who sits very quiet in the corner, which is if anyone knows Lisa, that's quite unusual for Lisa to be sitting quiet in the corner. So Lisa, General Secretary of International Women's Group, someone who I've had the privilege of working with for, I think we realised it was something like 14, 15 years, scary. Lisa sits on the NETBALLHer Advisory Board along with Lisa Weston and Dr. Helen. And Lisa said at the end of our call, or midway through our call the other week, she's so good at asking questions, are you prepared for this to grow, as in the campaign, to grow arms and legs and go to places that you didn't expect to go? And I paused, and Fran Connolly, Chief Executive, was on the call, and we sort of looked at one another. And my answer is yeah. Well, certainly after tonight, yes I am. But I'm going to throw it back to you now. Yes, I can. What's your thoughts after hearing tonight, and what do you think we can do with this?
Well, I guess the reason why I asked that question is when you create a campaign, you create a programme, and you love it dearly, and you've got your logo on it, it's hard to let it go. But actually, for this to really live and have impact, England Netball does have to let it go and let people use it in the way that's right for them, in the place that's right for them. So you'll know best what's going to work in your club with your teammates. Similarly, I'm sitting here thinking about all the people I know who will have no contact with netball or rugby or any of the sports, and I'm thinking, how do I make this something that's relevant to them when right now they think sport has no relevance? So it's kind of just opening our minds to that and just not being precious about it. And I think my only other reflection, and it's easy for me to say this now that I don't work for a sports council, because I always hated this question, but it's just a reflection really that it's great to hear sports working together, because that's fantastic. And for the impact that will have on athletes will be great, because we'll learn together. But I also just think right now there's a lot of people getting very excited about women's sport and championing how great it is. They're the very people who need to recognise that this is an important topic, and it's not a nice add-on, it's absolutely essential to the health and well-being of every woman and girl in this country, and we shouldn't be trying to sneak it into the classes and like it's basics, isn't it? So just stick your elbows out and take this moment when everybody's banging on about how great women's sport is to collectively say, this is having a big impact on the health and well-being of our nation, and we think that needs to change.
Amazing. See, unusual for us to sit in the corner. Thank you so much. And I think that message there, which is one of the main reasons why we work with Wellbeing Women, is it's health and education and sport talking to one another. And if that's what we need to try and drive, isn't it? So On that note, thank you. Yeah, I'm getting it finished. I've already pushed my luck. Thank you everybody for your time. Can we just go to the next slide? Who's ever's on slide duty? If you could, the one thing that I ask of you this evening is to go on there, share your wish I knew, use your socials to do it. There's been loads out on socials today, and go to places that we don't even know where it's going to. Please, that's the one ask we can do from this evening. So thank you very much, safe journeys home, and we hope to see you all soon.